This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Previously on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, Darth Taxus said something silly.
That's a pretty deep body of work to just pick one thing.
Hey, this is Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi, and you're listening to Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Every Star Wars movie has featured some sort of a daring escape scene, and today that is the focus of our hypothetical. Joining us for this discussion is the host of Coffee with Kenobi, Dan Zer.
But I guess my first pick is going to be the escape of Dr. Aphra from Darth Vader.
Brilliant! Ooh.
Yes, and it was done in the most ingenious way. She still had the two droids under her sway, or at least she had tricked them to be under her sway. And Vader was going to shoot her out the airlock, but then she had Black Chrysanthemum out there waiting for her. Am I getting that name
Yeah,
right?
she had Aphra.
Chrysanthemum?
Yes, whatever.
Chrysanthemum?
Is that a flower?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I thought maybe, that's why he was angry at all the Wookiees, because they made fun of his name. It's sort of like, I don't know, being named something like that, But
that would
no
be
offense
appalling.
to out there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, be careful. There are some that are big fans of the show.
No.
So my next one is more metaphorical, and it's the escape at the end of Rogue One from mortality for all the heroes. But each one of these demises is not done through anything other than love for a cause,
Yes.
love for a person, love for an idea, love for a bit of an escape from angst and suffering and just finding peace. So escape from, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Hamlet would say, and finding peace and purpose. And I just think it's lovely.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, you just gave me the chills, Dan. Seriously.
That's really deep. I have to figure out ways to dumb this podcast down a little more now because of that.
No.
Honey, can you change that light bulb?
Sure. I'll just stand on this chair to reach it.
It looks a little wobbly. Please be careful.
Oh, I'll be fine.
Are you okay? Well, don't move.
Oh,
I'll
my
call the
back.
doctor.
Don't you dare touch that phone!
But my husband is hurt, and I need to call the doctor.
And now a crew to fix the hole in the wall.
No doctor or construction company can help your husband, but the Law Jawa can.
The Law Jawa?
That's correct. Mundo. The Law Jawa at the offices of UT&E and Associates. The Tatooine Torque Wrench.
Writing down a note saying insert more fart gags.
Oh, stop it. Stop.
That stinks.
Balance. Oh. Well played,
Nice.
sir. Dan came to
doubt.
play. All right.
And so you got competition this episode.
No, boy.
Welcome back, Scoundrels. Here's what is in store for this week's show. We have the latest on awards and Star Wars from San Diego Comic-Con in this week's news. August is almost here, so it's time for another edition of Skystalking. We're still celebrating the Clone Wars 10th anniversary, and this week we're discussing Obi-Wan's Undercover operation. Finally, we'll get to listener feedback and silence fools. We've got a good feeling about this one. Thanks for joining us for episode 60 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
It's not a long time ago. It's not in a galaxy far, far away. It's right here, right now. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. The source for Star Wars news and discussions with your hosts, Dennis Keithley.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Jay Krebs.
Yeah, but it's custom. It's custom faded?
And Darth Taxus. Get ready for fast-flying, saber-swinging hot space opinions from your hosts, analysis, and other stuff, fun stuff. I'm not your host. I'm just a generic, unpaid announcer.
Thanks, Mario.
But the training you get is priceless. Greetings, Scoundrels. Welcome back to the podcast that thinks you need a second opinion before getting those implants. I'm your future dark subject for Botched,
Darth Taxus.
coming to you from the post-op recovery room of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me are my co-hosts, who blame why they aren't laughing on recent Botox injections, Dennis the Phantom Menace Keithley and Jay the Hut Jerry Krebs. Dennis and Jay.
I don't know what you're talking about, Taxus, but how are you doing tonight, guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah, my last recovery had nothing to do with Botox. Anyway. Well, hello, Star Wars fans. So it's summertime and a lot is going on. We'll be getting to some San Diego Comic-Con news here in just a sec. But actually, that'll be just Jay and Taxus. As we're recording this before I'm headed out on vacation. So, yeah, bear with us on that one, and they'll take care of the news and do a good job of it for you. So, what have you all been up to in the Star Wars galaxy as of late? Jay, I know you've been busy on Coffee with Kenobi.
I sure have, and I'm telling you what, I'm loving it because, of course, you know, I've been saying that summer was going to give me some time to do some things. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of reviews. I have a blog out right now. I'm going to be doing the review for the Lost Stars manga, and yeah, just kind of taking in as much Star Wars as I possibly can. We've got band camp starting here. By the time this airs, we'll already be knee deep in instruments. So it's like, oof, yeah, summer's already coming to a close. So more Star Wars I can get in my life for this amount of time, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to think of your Core Worlds Couture column recently. For Father's Day, the kids and my wife gave me 3 pairs of Star Wars socks. One is Lando and L337. One on each sock. Another one is just a pair of R2-D2 socks. And then the third is the young Han and Chewbacca with the goggles on. And I've been wearing those to work and nobody has noticed. Or at least if anyone's noticed, they haven't said anything. Not that you could see them too well underneath my pant leg. But anyway, that's been fun.
I could just see you in front of somebody like shifting your legs back and forth and everything. And finally somebody's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to recreate Basic Instinct here? What's going on? What are you doing?
They took care of that recreation in Deadpool 2. But
that's right.
But no, you know, it's you know, I put those socks on the morning, like, oh, this will be fun. And I completely forget about it. And then, you know, at the end of the day, I was like, oh yeah, I was wearing these and no one said anything. But like I said, it's not that it's obvious. And I think that's kind of, you know, why it's not exactly the most professional attire. But so how about you, Taxus? You've been had anything going on in the Star Wars galaxy?
Man, I've been trying. The one moment I finally get some time to read comics, I've been trying to read Vader 18 ever since it came out. And
you gotta get to that.
I know I haven't had time, and I'm in bed, and it's like 11:30, and you know, it's been a lot of time with Lady Taxus and everything, and then you know she wants to talk more, and I'm kind of like, I've been trying to get to this comic for a long time, but you know what? I didn't put a ring on the comic. I put a ring on your finger, honey. So,
that's right. Priorities.
That's
right. Priorities.
I haven't done it yet. Other than that, you know, just I think Joey Letson and I were kind of trading back and forth how we haven't had time. Well, he's never had the opportunity to, and I haven't really done it in a while. Played the Fantasy Flight X-Wing game, and we were trying to brainstorm a way we could do that over the interwebs with technology and science. Yeah, science. So I don't know if anybody's got any ideas about how to successfully run a distance gaming relationship like that, you know? I'm all ears because I think I'd like to try it out. I think it would be a really fun way to reenact some battle, or, you know, get some more time working it out, because not all of us can get away and, you know, go to game rooms and stuff like that because, you know.
Yeah, I've heard people that have done that. I have heard of gaming groups that meet over Skype, video, and all kinds of things. That's cool. The game you're talking about is much more tabletop, and you need to be able to see the models and things moving around. So that would be a bit more of a challenge. But I have heard of that being done. So I'm sure there's a solution to your problem out there somewhere. But getting back to your reference to Darth Vader number 18, if you read one comic, this summer, that's the one to read. It's a standalone story, just the one issue. It's fantastic. Today, which is, we're recording this part of the show on July 18th, Darth Vader Annual number 2 came out. Another awesome story about Darth Vader, about Darth Vader and Tarkin. Star Wars 51 is out today, and so is the latest Poe Dameron, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. But what they've got going on in Darth Vader has just been amazing. recently, and Chuck Wendig actually wrote the annual that came out today. Yeah, and it ties into Rogue One and Catalyst, the novel Catalyst, quite well. So I highly recommend both those issues.
I didn't realize that one Darth Vader number 18 you said was a standalone. So that's really cool to know, because that just means anybody could just jump right into it and read it and not have to feel like they need to be caught up in any way. So yeah, that's awesome.
There's only a small reference to something that happened in the previous story arc, but it's explained within this issue, so you don't have to read that story arc in order to get it. Not at all. But it's quite an incredible. Quite an incredible issue. I remember I let my son read that one. I normally just let him read the trades when they come out, and so he hasn't read the previous story arc, and he really enjoyed it. I got a lot of thoughts on this annual that I'm going to have to get out in a review here pretty quickly, but I highly recommend that one as well. Again, another standalone story. It helps if you've read Catalyst, but it's not required reading, and if you're familiar with Rogue One, then you'll appreciate this one as well. So
awesome.
All right, well, let's head on over to the news.
Well, usually Dennis is here to introduce the news segment, but there's so much awesome news that he just had to go and, I don't know, be by himself for a little while. But don't worry, little scoundrels, he'll be back. And there has been some significant news in the Star Wars news in Star Wars. Do you see why Dennis does this? So, Jay, what's up on deck first?
All right. Well, that was painful, but it's all good. So what is not painful is that the big news that's come out is the official cast announcement for episode 9. Yes. Of course, all the current cast will be back, including Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Lupita Nyong'o, Domhnall Gleeson, Kelly Marie Tran, Eunice Soitamo, and Billy Lord. Joining the cast are Naomi Ackie and Richard E. Grant, along with the veteran Star Wars actors Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, who's now been in every single one, of course, and Billy D. Williams. Whoa! Who will reprise his role as Lando Calrissian. But of course, the huge news is that Carrie Fisher will be rejoining the cast, and footage from her in The Last Jedi will be incorporated into the new movie. Oh, my goodness. So how about that, first of all?
Yes, that's, I'm going to trust it. I'm a little hesitant to really be irrationally exuberant about it.
Really?
Well, I guess my first recollection of something like this was from The Sopranos. And when Tony's mom, the actor who played his mom, died, they had to figure out a way to work her back into the series. So they had one episode where he went to go visit her, and it was very disjointed, because they kind of did the same thing where they took clips and stuff.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, I trust them to make it feel natural, I'm sure. But it's, I guess in my mind, this is dangerous territory.
It definitely can be. But my feeling is, too, that there's been so many blessings from basically everybody. I mean, Billy Lord said how wonderful it was to be able to, basically go forward with her mother's legacy. Her brother credits even J.J. Abrams with, just being willing to do this. And even Mark Hamill. I mean, he went out on Twitter, and I'm going to quote this really quick. He said, quote, "It's bittersweet facing my final chapter without her. She is simply irreplaceable. I'm finding solace in the fact that she won't be replaced and would love the worldwide outpouring of affection from those who loved her when they heard the news." So he was actually asking for people, how do you feel about this? And people have really been responding in a wonderful way. And I'm hoping too, just like you said, that it doesn't feel disjointed, but I really don't think that it will.
Right.
And JJ, I trust. And I really feel like it's going to be a good thing. And honestly, you can't, I just don't feel like you can have Ben's redemption truly without his mother. So I'm just so happy that again, that we're getting another dose of Carrie as Princess Leia, and it doesn't make sense to replace her with anyone else. So there's always that little bit of doubt, I guess, in the back of my mind. But
yeah, because I instantly went to the worst case scenario, which is basically C-3PO wearing a pair of head buns.
Oh Lord, that would be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, really would. So did you notice a name missing off of this? Couple of names?
Yes, and they actually did add Carrie Russell later.
Okay.
So there was the original announcement was this one, and then there was Carrie Russell that was added later. But who else is missing that you're thinking?
Gwendolyn Christie.
Oh yeah,
she's not on it, and also Andy Serkis.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Good catch.
JJ keeps things close to his vest, so I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
well,
that's
intentional. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more cast announcements coming down the pike, too. I mean, I'm still hoping, keeping my fingers and toes crossed that we're going to get Hayden Christensen and we're going to get Ewan McGregor.
That makes sense. That would make sense,
I would love that.
So what do you think about, is it obvious that Mark Hamill's going to be a Force ghost? Or are we thinking zombie Luke?
It's funny you say that. I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine, and, she brought up the idea of possibly the world between worlds.
I thought about that today, yeah.
Awesome, right? So, of course, we're going to try to keep the speculation down as much as possible. But, what if, and he specifically said to Ben, see you around, kid. Could have been a Force Ghost reference. But, Ahch-To is the first Jedi Temple. There's so much Force, going on there. And even though they weren't page turners, maybe the Jedi texts did have some sort of lesson about how to travel between the worlds.
You're right. There is so much Force going on there all the time, everywhere.
Everywhere. There's Force everywhere.
Yes, that's right.
It surrounds us. It penetrates us. But what do you think?
It's funny because I was listening to Tim McMahon's podcast, Less Than 12 Parsecs, and he said that there was some original vision of the Jedi being able to transcend, the realm that separates death and come back. I'm not thinking of like Space Jesus or anything like that, but basically that was kind of the concept originally, was that Obi-Wan and Yoda could actually materialize back in this realm physically or something. And to a certain extent we got that because Yoda, interacted with Luke and, bonked him upside the head. So,
true.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that they have been the only Jedi to dematerialize. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of Jedi that have passed away, but they've been the only ones that have been able to do that. And is that something from, the Wills technique? I mean, did Obi-Wan learn that from Qui-Gon? That Yoda said, learn to commune with him. You will. I teach you, I will. Remember in Revenge of the Sith? That was a horrible Yoda. No, I apologize to all of our listeners that you had to endure that. But yeah, I mean, could it be possible? Or maybe he'll just show up as Dabusque. I saw somebody say that on Twitter, and they're like, well, will he be Luke or will he be Dabusque?
Inquiring minds want to know. I want to know. Yeah, well, speaking of wanting to know, there is a little more information out there in the new Resistance series. The first episode synopsis has been released and states, Resistant fighter Poe Dameron tasks young pilot Kazuda
Zaziono.
Zion. Okay. I'll take your word for it. With spying on the First Order. At the time, little was known about the secretive organization and its strength. In order to fulfill his mission, Kaz travels to the space station Colossus, which is being used by many ships as a port to refuel and do repairs. However, there are also dangerous races taking place there, and I assume they mean like in vehicles or something. Just, that'd be inappropriate. After Kaz bragged with his piloting skills at his rival there, he is soon drawn into one of the races. Okay. And it will include voice cameos by Oscar Isaac and Gwendolyn Christie as well. It will run for 22 episodes in the first season, and it's rumored to begin in October. So this sounds kind of like your, typical fun old Star Wars setup, kind of somebody shooting their mouth off and then they have to prove it. Which I applaud. I mean, whenever you're doing a new series, I've always advocated that you have to do something familiar to make people feel comfortable with this. Oh,
absolutely. Right. And especially, I mean, do we know what the actual target age audience is? Not that it really matters all that much, because as we know with the other animated series, they've catered to, all age groups. But is there a target in mind for this one? Kind of like with Forces of Destiny?
And I'm going to say 65 and a half.
Okay.
Which is, I think, the age you can start taking distributions out of your retirement account. So there's your disposable income group.
All right, then. But it does. I mean, it makes sense that they're going to start with something familiar, such as these races. So could it be a pod race? Could it be, some sort of other type of competition race that takes place somewhere in the galaxy? But yeah, you're right. It's familiar. And so have we seen any more of the images to come out? Have you seen any more since the last news item that we shared?
I have not. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you. I mean, again, I feel like they've been really, really careful about not letting anything leak with this. In fact, I'm kind of surprised how quickly. I mean, they've got 22 episodes ready to go. Mm-hmm. That's that's kind of snuck under the radar, in my opinion.
Well, they also said, though, I don't know if you got to see the Clone Wars panel from Comic-Con, but Dave Filoni was talking about the idea that they had the entire first season of Clone Wars done and scripted in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, I mean, if they've been, think about how long ago the series was first announced. If they're really working on that kind of a time crunch timetable, but yet able to pump out these kind of creative masterpieces, then it doesn't surprise me that they've come up with 22 episodes because the story group is amazing. I mean, let's face it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the series plays out. And I just don't think we're seeing a whole lot about it just yet, just because there's so much else going on. I mean, with the announcement of the Clone Wars coming back and then the announcement of the cast of episode 9, I think it's kind of a little under the radar, as you said, in more ways than one. So eventually, when the time is right, I think the focus will shift a little bit.
Oh, yeah. But until then, there's other shifting happening, isn't there?
There is a lot of shifting with shares. There's share shifting. Share shifting. So last week, Disney and Fox shareholders approved the sale of the Fox Entertainment assets to Disney for over $71 billion.
Whoa.
Yeah, this effectively paves the way for the sale to be completed for all intents and purposes. And this will have ramifications throughout the fantasy and sci-fi world, but it's not clear what effect this will have on Star Wars.
Huh.
Yeah, because of course the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, Disney and Fox. So I know this is Star Wars podcast, but that kind of paves the way for X-Men to go into the Marvel cinematic universe.
Yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying?
I'll one up you on that. How about Alien and Predator?
Ooh.
And let's see what else could we work in there. Oh, Fantastic Four, of course. We've talked about that.
Of course.
One thing Scott Murray, one of the geeks from the Geek Supreme, mentioned in our episode out today. He said he sincerely hopes that this allows somebody to suggest, hey, why don't we use the 20th Century Fox fanfare at the openers? Because it just feels so comfortable, We've talked about before how John Williams actually wrote the Star Wars theme to be in the same key as the fanfare. So it literally just kind of blends in together. So in my mind, as a kid growing up, I thought that was actually like the opening to Star Wars,
Right?
And still,
so did I.
Still today, in the theater, anytime I hear the fanfare, I stick my head up like a, one of those little what's those rodents? Meerkat? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I go, Star Wars? Star Wars? Yeah.
Yep.
my
It's
my
like
family gets
Pavlov's
really
dog.
annoyed by it. Yeah, right.
Pavlov's dogs, you're trained in it's that operant conditioning. So I know I was always the same way too. I just always thought that they were synonymous. Your brain just instantly clicks right over. But
it's definitely a big game changer, I think.
It is.
In the entertainment industry. And
I'm also wondering too, since we've talked about the Disney streaming service obviously Fox is going to have, and Disney, now that they own Fox, is that going to be something that they're going to kind of partner with the streaming service in that way as part of Fox Entertainment? Or is that going to be strictly Disney? I wondered about that and how they were going to present that, especially now, of course, with Clone Wars being streamed exclusively on that. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, I guess this kind of tightens the news, so to speak, as far as where you can find all your old Fox favorites out there in the streaming verse. I just hadn't really gone that far in my thinking about that. So it's like, I don't know. It's kind of, to me, whenever you say, hey, name a Fox movie, I'm always like, Gallipoli?
Really?
was the Road Warrior Fox? Maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but if you scratch the surface, I bet you there are so many titles out there that all of a sudden we've got, the potential to bring into Disney Princessdom. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Good point.
Yeah, that's right. It's like,
well, yeah, it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out, especially with Clone Wars. But and just, this has nothing to do with the merger, but one thing about the Clone Wars streaming on the streaming service for Disney is, do you think that they'll release all of the episodes at once? Like they did, like with Stranger Things on Netflix.
So. I don't think so.
I'm so afraid of that. And then, people will just binge it, and then you'll have to just avoid all the spoilers online.
I don't think so. It's because of the successful model that CBS had with Discovery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Basically, they made it appointment television for streaming. And that way you kind of keep the consumer on the hook longer, so that people can't just sign up for something, binge watch what they want to watch, and then cancel. You're guaranteed a certain number of months. Well, within a certain demographic, you're guaranteed a certain number of months of revenue flows, from this group, for targeting them with this stuff. And
I personally would like to have it done that way. I don't like the whole binging all at once kind of thing, because then it's kind of like Christmas morning, you unwrap every single present and then you look around and there's nothing but chaos and it's over.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So
and then you just want to keep, you'll have me crawling back for more. But,
me too.
And speaking of crawls.
Yeah. Oh, excellent segue. I was going to say something to the effect of, something else that needs to be at the beginning of movies? But I like yours better. Well, speaking of crawls, apparently there was an opening crawl for Rogue One. As reported in Jedi News, Gary Whitta revealed that he did indeed write up one for the movie. But he said the decision to exclude it was correctly made, leaving fans to only cluelessly speculate what it could have been. So one of the cool things about this was that he said he was really proud of himself because he used the exact same number of words as the crawl in A New Hope.
That is pretty impressive, yeah. I must say. To have it down to, the exact number.
Yeah, and we take the crawl for granted, and everybody's like, well, you don't need the crawl in these standalone stories. But I have to tell you, there is still a large group of people out there who don't understand all the settings. They're not so inside Hutball like we are, And they'll say, now, which movie is this? Is this after the first one or the second one, or is this, and they don't understand, well, how come Luke's not in it? How come, So I feel like the crawl would be well suited to try to teach the uninitiated exactly what's happening. just like, the first time we ever saw Star Wars. That's what the intent of it was, to set the scene. It's like you might say like the chorus in Greek theater or something,
So you would say that you are a crawl advocate.
I am a crawl advocate. I think that is one of the things that makes it feel like a Star Wars movie. Not that they haven't done a good job without them, but
I can see your point. I really, for the standalones, I can see why they didn't do it though, because the episodic movies have a certain tone and a certain flow, and then the standalones have their own kind of thing. So I can see it going either way. I mean, I wasn't upset that there was no crawl for Rogue One or Solo, a Star Wars movie, if it had been in there.
Right.
I guess if there wasn't a debate in the first place, I probably wouldn't even have questioned it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Except for the fact that it was been like, oh, there's no crawl. Interesting. Move on. So, for me, it's like I always say, it's all Star Wars and it's all good. So
Yep.
You can take my money and move on.
I'll crawl through broken glass to see it.
Crawl through the crawl. And speaking of taking my money, there's going to be another thing to take my money here coming out, which actually drops today on July 31st. And that is the complete 4th season of Star Wars Rebels on Blu-ray. Never heard of it, huh? I think there might be some people that'd be upset to hear you say that. So you got all 15 action-packed episodes, plus some exclusive never-before-seen extras. So some of those never-before-seen extras include things like Dave Filoni on 6 audio commentaries, and you're going to get to learn about the nature of the Force as Filoni shares his insights into the power that binds, with the special called Forces of Rebellion. Right. And you're going to get to meet the mastermind composer, Kevin Kiner, and discovered what inspired the show's most enduring musical themes. And of course, you will also get the complete final season of Rebels Recon. Oh, cool. So that's kind of cool because, it uncovers some of those special Easter eggs that you may not have known about otherwise.
Yeah, that's neat.
So you're going to get a 2-disc Blu-ray or a 3-disc DVD. And the runtime for everything is approximately 353 minutes of Rebels glory. So go back and relive it.
There's also a special feature on how to select the best rock and roll cowboy hat to fit your head style.
Oh, there you go. Which is very important.
We should
put that in the next That's So Wizard because
That's a good idea.
That would work.
Well, and lastly, security is tightening up on the set of Episode 9. Reportedly, J.J. Abrams is allowing only phones without cameras onto the set. We here at Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels are calling this Operation Back in Our Day. We didn't have all this fancy phone stuff. You kids don't know how good you have it. Representatives from kids groups are responding with Operation Shut Up, Old Man. So, what do you think? Is this a good move? Will this control the leaks or what?
Oh my goodness. Actually, I do think it's a good move. Because it's understandable that how easy is it just to snap a picture and, leak that out there to the right people. But we don't like leaks. They're really messy.
Right.
But I could see where they're doing this. So I'm wondering, are they providing the cast with like the old Nokia style phones?
Yeah, right.
Or like getting them out from the 1980s, from the very first ones that were like huge. Remember that? I think it was on Miami Vice that they used to pull those out every once in a while.
Or like the bag phone. Do you remember those?
No, the bag phone?
Yeah, it was like you had to have the main unit in basically a big
on your hip, and then it had the cord to it.
It was like and you had to hold the handset up to your head and hold the rest of it in your hand, like it was like the size of a Bible and stuff.
Right.
Think about that,
Oh my gosh, how far technology has come, right?
I know, right? And everybody's trying to run from it now because I don't know. You see what happens when you start letting the robo overlords take over your lives, kiddos?
Yeah, it's both a blessing and a curse, as I always say, technology. So
meanwhile, in the domain of the evil robot overlords, we must determine what the secrets to Episode 9 are. We can't. There are no cameras there.
And they are going to start filming on August 2nd.
Oh,
correct.
Cool.
I believe is when they're starting the filming.
Yeah.
So we'll be seeing some fun stuff from there on out. And wow, that was a great news session, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really was. So Jay, why don't you remind everybody where else on the interweb computer thing that they can check news for
Okay,
Star
don't hurt
Wars
yourself. Don't hurt yourself, Taxus. Okay, so you ready? Well, you can always check out fanthetracks.com, Jedi News, Coffee with Kenobi, and of course, StarWars.com for all of your news needs. And of course, RetroZap.com.
The kids of the 70s and 80s are all grown up, but the good times of childhood don't have to end.
Our generation can share the fun and fandom of our youth with the next generation and bring the past into the future.
And wrap it all up to make a fantastic present.
Join Jedi Schwa and Chef's Bazaar every Monday morning to get your work week started by reminiscing about the past and exploring the future with your earbuds on Techno Retro Dads.
So find us on iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, or on RetroZap.com. Part of the RetroZap Network.
Feel like what?
Like we're being watched.
I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
It's time for another edition of Skystalking. In this segment, Darth Taxus reports which conventions all the Star Wars celebrities are appearing at in August 2018. With that, take it away, Taxus.
Thank you. First up, we got Tampa Bay Comic-Con, August 3rd to the 5th. We've got Brent Spiner, who is Gal Travis in Rebels, Jim Cummings, Hondo Anaka, and then David Hayter, voices of the male characters in Star Wars The Old Republic, Nolan North, El Les. That's like Spanish or French.
Right, together. And then he did the male Jedi Consular character in the Old Republic.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I was mispronounced. Then we got Kevin J. Anderson, who is the author of the Jedi Academy trilogy, Darksaber, and Tales of the Jedi comics. I've loved those. Same weekend, Comic-Con, Honolulu, Hawaii. Roy Thomas, who's a writer in classic Marvel Star Wars comics. Yeah,
hold on, let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Roy Thomas is like key for classic Marvel Star Wars comics. He helped Marvel get that license back in the day.
Oh wow!
And then he wrote several of the issues along the way. He was pretty big in Marvel. So if you're at all interested in Marvel comics beyond what they did with Star Wars, he'd be someone to meet. And he's going to be at several places over the course of August.
And he helped create a fan favorite, Jackson, right?
Yeah. So I've never expire. Go check it out.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I've never heard of Jackson, so this is I gotta check that out. Jason Isaacs also. That's going to be a nice little vacation for him, who is the Grand Inquisitor, of course. Next weekend, August 10th through 12th, Boston Comic-Con in Boston, Massachusetts. Or is it Massachusetts? I don't know. I've heard it pronounced both ways. We've got, wait a minute. Billy D! Whoa! Got Freddie Prinze Jr. Oh my gosh, that's a big one, right? I mean, he goes out, but it's a little far, few and far between. Paul Rubens? That's awesome.
Sorry.
And then we've got Brent Spiner again, all right, making the circuit. John Byrne is cover artist for Star Wars 13. Bob McLeod, penciler for several classic Star Wars comics and also a cover artist. David Hayter again. And Tara Strong, who did some voices for Star Wars The Old Republic. Same weekend.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Yeah, I was just going to point out something. In case you didn't know what Pee Wee Herman did in Star Wars, he was the original pilot and captain for Star Tours, and then he reprised that role in the Rebels episode of Droids in Distress. And Tara Strong, her role in the Old Republic, for anyone who's played that game, is that she played, her big one is Risha, which was kind of one of the key companions for the smuggler character in that game. Yeah. And so she kind of had a fairly big part there.
Yep. We've got Steel City Comic-Con, Monroeville, Pennsylvania. Ron Perlman. Wow, I forgot that he was a Trandoshan scavenger, right? Mm-hmm. And Daphne Zuniga, who was, of course, Princess Vespa. Now, that's a cool one. If she ever made it down here, I think I'd have to get that,
Yeah, she doesn't get out to too many of the cons, but she does show up at one from time to time.
Mm-hmm. And RawCon, August 11th in Rahway. That's not a weird way to pronounce Raleigh. You know, like, who was that? Madeline Kahn. Raleigh, New Jersey. Tom Smith, comic colorist for Star Wars Tales number 19. Now, here's one. Terrificon, August 17th through the 19th in Uncasville, Connecticut. All right. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot here. Yeah.
Right, and we're not going to go through all of these people. This con is really a comic con. It is full of people that are doing things or did things in the comic industry, and we've got over a dozen names here. Some of them you're not going to recognize, some of you will. If you want a complete list, let us know and I'll email it to you. But Taxus, you can go ahead and highlight some of the big ones.
Yeah, so I think we've got C.B. Cebulski, who's the editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics. Of course, Charles Soule. And again, I really hope he makes it down our way at some point. Everybody knows him for Poe Dameron and Vader, and also the Lando miniseries. What do we got here? Chris Stevens. I like this illustrator for Scum and Villainy Sourcebook with the Wizards of the Coast RPG. We've got Larry Hama. Hama. Okay. If you hum a few bars, I'll be able to tell you. Wrote a few issues of the classic Star Wars comics and also cover arts, but he was pretty instrumental in the early Marvel Comics dynasty too, if I remember correctly. Right, Dennis?
Yeah, I can't remember which ones he did exactly, but I do know that he did have some input on some of the issues, yeah.
Then we've got Joe Caroni, who's, of course, a wonderful Star Wars artist. Paul Meltz.
And I have to interrupt you. Sure. He's also from Ohio, and I've met him on several occasions, and I own some of his artwork, and he is a fabulous guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome. And have you gotten the cease and desist letter for chasing him down yet? Or
not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
No.
All right. Kind of
waiting for that one.
Follow him to the local Piggly Wiggly or whatever y'all have up there. All right, and that's a lot of comics books people.
Yeah, the other one I'd mention there is Joe Caramagna, because he does most of the lettering. Well, not most, but he's done a lot of the lettering in the current Marvel Star Wars comics.
Oh, wow.
He's doing a lot of the current work there.
Same weekend at Michigan Comic-Con in Detroit, Michigan. Well, Ray Park's going to be there. Everybody knows, of course, his work as Darth Maul. And Jim Swearingen, who's the designer for Kenner Star Wars toys. That would be a cool one, too, especially if he had cool. Like one of the original ones still in box. You know? Mm-hmm. That'd be a great find. Matt Suricon, Columbus, Ohio. Maybe you can run into your buddy there. You know, Joe Caramagna.
Joe Caroni.
Joe Caroni, I meant.
If I was going to be anywhere near Columbus at that point in time, but I'm not. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to miss Carrie Walgren, who has led a tournament.
I know.
And voiced Ayla Secura and Darth Phobos in 4 short weeks. Force Unleashed. She also did some female characters in the Old Republic and other voices for Star Wars video games. August 25th through 26th, Amazing Comic Con Aloha, Honolulu, Hawaii. Wow, Tara Strong's getting a really good vacation because she wasn't at the Honolulu one. She was at Boston. Well, she's going to be tired after traveling that far, but she's there again. Soda City Comic Con, Columbus, South Carolina, August 25th through 26th. Roy Thomas, writer on classic Marvel Star Wars comics. And, also helped create Jackson. Dragon Con, this is a big one. Atlanta, Georgia, August 30th to September 2nd. This is one of the bigger, conventions. Kevin J. Anderson again. Henry Gilroy, who's a writer in the Clone Wars. E.K. Johnston did the Ahsoka novel. Michael Stackpole, well, he was the author with some of the older books. Tara Strong, again. Wow. Chrissy Zullo, who was cover artist for Forces of Destiny. Timothy Zahn of Thrawn fame.
Nice.
Jim Beard, who's a writer of Star Wars comics. Andy Brace, a Star Wars comic illustrator, or just a Star Wars illustrator, sorry. Kishore Hari works with science.
Yes, science!
And Star Wars.
Yeah, she's the editor on that Science and Star Wars show that they've got, that StarWars.com does.
Oh, okay.
Anthony Carboni is involved in that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, science. Robert Hendrickson, Star Wars Insider illustrator. Stephanie Martinier. Stefan. Oh.
Yeah, it hurts to miss that one.
It hurts to miss that one. Concept artist for AOTC, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Christian Wagoner, Star Wars Reflections Paintings.
Yeah, that's a cool series if you've never seen it. That they had that in the Star Wars Tops Trader app on your phones, and you'd have a close up of one character, and then and the reflection, like for instance Darth Vader, and the reflection of his lenses, you would see Luke Skywalker or Obi-Wan Kenobi like facing him with their lightsaber.
Yeah, cool.
And then like the R2D2 one, it was a close up on R2D2's dome, and then in his lens there, it was a reflection of Leia putting in the Death Star plans.
That's really cool.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It's a really cool series of painting. I know it's been released as a calendar, I think, and you can, like I said, it was in the Star Wars Tops card trader, whatever they call that nowadays, as well as a collection that was very popular there for a while. So, check that out.
I'd love to have that as a calendar for my classroom. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good product idea. Hear that, Tops? And rounding it up in same weekend, Fan Expo Canada in Toronto, Canada, August 30th to September 2nd. Paul Rubens, as we said before. Peter Mayhew, good one. Go there, get it. Jim Cummings, Gray Delisle, who's a voice for Star Wars video games, Rebels, Lego Star Wars, and Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, in the original Clone Wars, she did Asajj. So she was the first one.
And I have it on good authority that she was a very, very kind and wonderful person. So, Joe DiMaggio. John DiMaggio. Wow, I had to go back.
Baseball.
Yeah, I know, right? Wow, isn't he dead? Freemaker Adventures, General Grievous and Shaggy for the Clone Wars, who was friends with Scoopy. Got Steve.
Do you remember Shaggy in that original Clone Wars series? He was the little Jedi that he looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. He had the little tiny beard on his chin, and he couldn't take the pressure when they were all trapped in that down ship. And Grievous was stalking him, and he just loses it and runs outside.
I remember him now that you say that.
Yeah, Grievous trampled him.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. We should go back and rewatch those. That's what we should do.
We'll do that sometime,
Yeah. Then we've got Steve Bloom, who's flying solo at this one. Marjorie Liu, who's a writer for Star Wars Han Solo, and Bob McLeod again. And you are up to date.
Yeah, now you may recall that Billy D. Williams was supposed to be at some of these cons, and he canceled, which started this whole big reporting and rumors that he's going to be part of Episode 9. So anyway, Scoundrels, just a reminder, but make sure you check the websites for each of these conventions if you are interested in going. Cancellations happen all the time. Plus, some of these conventions are promising additional announcements. May or may not have anything to do with Star Wars. And if you do meet any of these celebrities, make sure to let us know about it, and we'll feature your report in Silence Fools. We are still celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Clone Wars, and this week we are looking at Obi-Wan's undercover operation to undermine Count Dooku's plot to abduct Chancellor Palpatine. And this is from Season 4 of the Clone Wars, episodes 15 through 18. We'll get into each one of the individual episodes and discuss them in turn, but overall the idea is that Dooku is trying to abduct Palpatine, and the Jedi get word of this, and they fake Obi-Wan's death and then send him in undercover as bounty hunter Rako Hardeen. And really, at this point, if you need a spoiler warning, well, I'm sorry, these have been out for 6 years? Right. So we're just going to skip the whole spoiler alert. But before we dive into the individual episodes, okay, Taxus, you can play the spoiler alert.
I'll do a special one. Here we go.
All right. Wonderful. Okay. Well, before we dive into the episodes individually, let's just go around the table real quick and give a quick 60-second or less thought on the overall about these episodes. So, Jay, what do you think?
Well, honestly, this is one of my favorite arcs in all of Clone Wars. And there's, of course, I love all of them, but there's just something about this one that kind of really hits home in a lot of ways in terms of how brutal some of the things that were happening in the underworld actually were, and to what lengths that the Jedi would go to try to get things done. And, there were some images in here that were very, very disturbing, and also some very adult themes that were going on throughout this whole thing. And again, it's one of the reasons why I love the Clone Wars so much. It was not afraid to take risks, and it wasn't afraid to step outside of the general comfort zone, I guess you could say, and, attack some... Step outside of the box. There you go. Perfect reference. But yeah, it's a lot of these episodes, they really have a lot of really great things going on.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why this stands out to me is because when I had my awakening of Star Wars back in my life, I wasn't really watching the Clone Wars. I mean, I guess I was kind of one of the group that said, the Clone Wars movie, and I appreciate it now a lot more than I did back then, but I wasn't really tuned in with Clone Wars. Well, if I remember correctly, this season 4 came out after the acquisition news. Am I right?
I don't recall.
Or was it right before? I can't quite remember, but
it was in about 2012, so I can't remember exactly how that relates to the acquisition. But anyway.
But something spurred me to start watching, and I came in at the beginning of this arc, and with my daughter, and so we were kind of hooked after that, and we it was kind of appointment television for us on Cartoon Network, every Saturday morning, and it was fun. So that's why I think this has a special place in my heart, is because it kind of reignited the spark.
Yeah, I agree with Jay. There's some really interesting things that happen in this story arc, and it's you kind of see the Jedi losing their way from time to time, as we'll discuss as we get through this. But let's go ahead and dive into the episodes, and I'll start off with a little summary for episode 15 from season 4, which is entitled Deception. There is a plot to abduct the Chancellor. However, the Jedi create their own plot to keep him safe. Namely, they fake the assassination of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he goes undercover as Oreko Hardeen, the very bounty hunter that supposedly killed him. However, the Jedi Council does not confide in Anakin and Ahsoka the details of their plan, and this will create some problems. Obi-Wan goes to prison to get information from Moralo Aval, the mastermind of the plot. Once in prison, Obi-Wan learns that Moralo Aval hired Cad Bane to break him out. During a meal, Boba Fett, of all people, confronts Obi-Wan, and a prison riot ensues. This is a diversion for Cad Bane and Moralo Aval to make their escape. Once outside the prison, they depart Coruscant, and Moralo Aval invites Obi-Wan to join their plans. So there it is. This is the first episode. This is Obi-Wan getting undercover. Okay, so this is, you kind of get during the what they call it, the when Admiral Yularen, Tom Kane, does that whole little intro to the episode, assassination plot, and he's breaking down what happens, and you see the Jedi Council meeting, and Obi-Wan's kind of looking, he's got that odd expression on his face as they're coming up with about
I know, right?
About what they're going to do. And so, the Jedi hire this bounty hunter to go after Obi-Wan and, fake his death. And so, I don't know, right off the bat, what did you all think about this? It was Obi-Wan's idea that he had to have this assassination plot happen right in front of Anakin, and he wasn't going to tell Anakin because he wanted Anakin's reaction to get out there, because if he could make Anakin believe it, then he can make Count Dooku believe it. We find this out in one of the later episodes, but what did you think about this Obi-Wan faking his death right in front of Anakin and Ahsoka?
Well, my goodness, that's such a bold move, number one. But, the card that he plays with not telling Anakin was both a very smart move and a not so smart move, because, of course, that plants the seeds for other things going on later on that we'll get into. But yeah, it's very out of the, again, kind of out of the box of the Jedi to kind of go this backdoor way to try to do something like this. But there's so much to this, and it reminds me of. Have you guys ever seen that movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nick Cage? Yeah. Oh, really? So it really reminds me a lot of that too, which is one of my favorite movies. I love that movie, but yeah, there's so much in here that is kind of creepy in a way. It's very cringy. You can just see Anakin seething, and of course he bought it because no one was telling him otherwise. But that was a pretty dangerous game that they were playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the Face Off reference. And basically he comes out of it and it's like, "Ooh, Obi-Wan, you look good, girl." But. To me, the rough spot is swallowing that giant thing that's going to stick in your throat, Yeah. Could they just not have animated that just a little smaller? Because, I mean, seriously, did you see the size of that?
I think it was huge. Yeah.
And he took it, it's like, how do you even breathe with that thing in your throat,
Exactly.
I mean, it was big. But anyway, so... so I guess there's a couple of inconsistencies about this with me, and I guess that was one of them. I was thinking, I don't know, that'd be kind of rough to pull off, but I just think as far as the whole fooling Anakin, I understand why, but it's funny, the reason why kind of comes up as an issue later. They're not telling Anakin because he's brash and he just does things without thinking. Right. Which might.
But Yoda admits this is a mistake.
Yeah, he did because as we'll find out later, Anakin's brashness and acting without thinking might have endangered the mission. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. To me, it was Anakin took this hard. That Obi-Wan was, he believed Obi-Wan to be dead. And then, he went out of his way to find the killer, which, was Obi-Wan disguised at the time. And then, later it was, he felt really betrayed that he wasn't included on this. And, I can see that. And of course, we'll also find out a later episode that Palpatine was kind of stoking.
Sure.
These feelings.
So let me
advantage of that.
Let me ask you, at the funeral scene, was that Duchess Satine?
It was, and her crying was breaking my heart because she wasn't in on it either.
Right.
So, I mean, for her to actually believe that, Obi-Wan was the love of her life, and there she is believing that he's dead. I'd like to know who they actually had under the sheet.
Whoa! Didn't he actually descend and well, maybe not, because they kind of as opposed to the funeral pyre. They put him in the catacombs under the Jedi Temple, which was interesting.
Right, you see the flame coming up, though. So I was under my interpretation that there was an actual crematory, but the light that came up through, I don't know.
Well, as somebody that's faked his death several times, trust me, there's no limit to the number of corpses you can find out in the winter in the alleyways.
And for the Jedi to do that, that's what I know. But you know what I'm saying? That's kind of creepy if it was someone else. But Mon Mothma was there too. Did you notice that?
Yeah. So Padme, Mon Mothma, and Satine were all there, and I was looking at the art guide online for this episode, and for those models, they basically took of those characters, they took existing art assets and just basically turned their dresses black to make it mourning gear for them. So
makes sense.
Which brings up a point. As much as I like Rebels, the art is I'm not going to say it's superior, but they had different budgets for the Clone Wars, and they were able to get a lot more characters and scenes. During the prison riot, for instance, there were tons of people in the prison there, and you would not have had that many in a similar scene in Rebels, for instance. But this was George Lucas in charge of the Clone Wars, as opposed to Lucasfilm kind of under the guise of Disney with something of a budget, with budget constraints there. But even then, they still had to abide by what they could spend on an episode. And I think George wanted to spend more money than they do now on Rebels, and probably they do a Resistance, but still, they didn't have an unlimited budget for these things. So, that was just kind of a sign there. They made mourning gear by turning other assets, painting them black. So
it's funny you say that because when I was researching all the bounty hunters in the later episode, almost every single tag in their wiki pages at the end was this character's model was later used in Padawan Lost. Oh, yeah, it was. And was just, although the outfit was just painted different colors.
Well, yeah, I think Padawan Lost actually came before this, and they reused assets from there for some of the characters. But yeah, you're right. And StarWars.com makes that point too, that a lot of these characters were repurposed assets from other episodes. But
so when I say the other aliens all look alike to me, there's a reason why.
Yeah, that's right. Well, two other points I wanted to make about this. One, did you catch what the Obi-Wan used as his code name?
Oh, Ben. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he called into Mace and Yoda and said, "This is Ben," and he does it again in one of the later episodes, and it was driving me crazy trying to figure out who Moralo Eval, who the actor was that was doing that voice. And when I looked it up and it turned out to be Stephen Stanton, it still drove me crazy because that's not who I was thinking.
But I didn't realize that's who did that.
Well, I had always thought that his first role in Star Wars of the Clone Wars was playing, it may still have been, but it was just Tarkin. I didn't think he had done anything else in the Clone Wars, but just goes to show you.
Speaking of which, that character's name, it's like Cruella de Vil.
Now, see, I was thinking evil morals.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
exactly.
Moralo
like,
Eval,
yeah,
but
right.
evil morals.
That's exactly
kind of
right.
backwards.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, right.
I can see what you're playing on there. Yeah.
Moralo Eval. Moralo Eval.
If you guys go back to the prison riot, Boba Fett confronts Rako Harding, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's like, you owe me, and starts yelling at him, and it's this whole thing to kind of get this riot going so they can escape. And Bosk steps up and sticks up for Boba. And I don't know if you remember the Legends; those two were not friends in Legends. Right. They were pretty fierce rivals. But did you notice towards the end of that confrontation, Boba Fett throws a look over to Cad Bane, who kind of nods back at him? And the reason I bring this up is that last year at Comic-Con, they showed us what do they call it? An animatic. It was an unfinished episode. Yeah. And it was Boba Fett and Cad Bane squaring off, kind of like a shootout at the OK Corral, because Cad Bane had been acting as a mentor to him at that time, and Boba Fett didn't want to do what Cad Bane wanted him to do, so they ended up shooting it out. But this was, I couldn't recall that those two had worked together anywhere else in the Clone Wars, or at least had this type of a relationship going on.
Interesting. Yeah, isn't that how it's been hypothesized that Boba got the dent in his helmet?
Yeah. If you saw that clip at Clone Wars, they basically, he got shot in the head, and not exactly, we don't know what happened to Cad. Right. Fell over after being shot. So,
Dennis, that's a good question. Because I was trying to figure that out too when I saw that, and I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to look it up while we were talking just to see if there was anything out there. But because Cad Bane, basically the first time we saw him, it was the attack on the senatorial grounds. Was that right?
Yeah, that was at the end of season 1. We saw him fairly early in the Clone Wars.
And was he in anything between season 1 and season 4?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I just couldn't remember him actually being in anything with Boba Fett.
Okay, because later Yoda's like, mistake to capture Cad Bane. It was, now I see.
Yeah, well, they caught him a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
My memory's sketchy right now on that stuff, so,
One last point then. When they're escaping, they kind of go through the morgue. They pose as bodies, and they get into I don't know if they were coffins or what they were. They just got sent down to the crematorium, and once they're there, the clones in the crematorium scan and like, wait a minute, there's people that are alive in there. And then Cad Bane, Moralo Eval, and Obi-Wan jump out and dispatch them and escape through the crematorium. That was the first time Clone Wars had worn hats in the clone. I'm sorry, the clones wore hats in the Clone Wars, and they just, apparently Dave Filoni said he was watching the online Clone Wars Adventures game, and he saw that there was a clone with a hat, and he said, we got to do that in the show. So cool. That was cool. And then second, what did you all think? He obviously wasn't happy about it, but Obi-Wan really did let Cad Bane kill a clone. during their escape there. I mean, he hesitated shooting himself, but then he let Cad Bane shoot at least, I think it was 2 clones there. I don't know. Did that set well with you guys?
Well, you know, what was going through my mind at the time was that with Obi-Wan being so, you know, on the front lines with all the clones anyways, he's seen so many of them give their lives for the Republic that maybe he was kind of justifying it in his mind that, well, I guess they had to go down for this mission because there's a bigger picture involved here. You know, to justify the whole thing, I'm not, you know, it's kind of weird that he would just kind of let them just take them out, but because they are people, but maybe in his mind, that's what they were put there for, was to serve. So,
ooh,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I know.
a good point.
It's kind of cold, you know, but
yeah, but that's a good point. I mean, you know, you don't send a Boy Scout in to do a Sith job, right? And basically, if you're going to do something like that, you got to. I'm sorry, it's going to take you to dark places, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about that guy that infiltrated the motorcycle gangs a long time ago. Yeah, so there was a movie where Charlie Sheen portrayed this guy, and he was a cop, but he had to get into these motorcycle gangs. And basically, it's just a rough crowd, rough scene, right? And he did a lot of things that, according to the movie, he did a lot of things, but I don't know if, you know, court of law stuff, you know what I'm saying, Dennis? Whether he could actually attest to any of that. But if you believe the movie, then he had to do a lot of stuff to kind of get ingratiated with them. And that's the one thing I kind of felt weird about this, is that, you know, nobody ever sees Reiko actually kill anyone, you know, yet his reputation is he killed a Jedi, you know, and I think as the arc continues, there's a little bit of more doubt in Moralo's mind as to his real abilities or intentions, you know, because of that.
Well, I think it was much more Cad Bane's.
Cad Bane started out,
the doubt was out Cad Bane, and I think, as we'll find out later, Moralo was more jealous that Obi-Wan was figuring out all of his traps, but we can get to that in a bit. I guess just my point on this is that it's I get that, you know, I get that these are soldiers and that they're called on to make sacrifices, but they don't even know that they're making a sacrifice here. Right. They're being murdered in this prison by escapees, and I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't know how you would necessarily do it differently for Obi-Wan, but yeah, I mean, there was plenty of other there's plenty of other moments over the course of the series where something similar was about to happen, and then something intervenes, which prevents him from doing, or he finds another way. But at least in this instance, he wasn't able to. But we need to move along, so let's go on to the next episode, which is episode 16. And it's called Friends and Enemies. After escaping Coruscant, Obi-Wan, disguised as Reiko Hardeen, Cad Bane, and Moralo Aval crashed their ship on Nal Hutta. They next travel to the city of Bilbosa to get new clothes, weapons, and a ship. After Obi-Wan secures them a ship, Cad Bane forcefully leaves him behind, but not before Obi-Wan leaves a tracker on the hull, which he then offers the signal for up to the Nal Hutta security. Security then brings down Bane and Moralo's ship, and they meet up with Obi-Wan back in town. Meanwhile, the Chancellor encourages Anakin to go after Reiko Hardeen. Obi-Wan reunites with Bane and Moralo and depart in a new ship just as Anakin and Ahsoka arrive. The Jedi chase down the fugitives, but after a physical confrontation, Obi-Wan manages to tell Anakin not to follow him just before knocking out his former Padawan. So, again, they're on the run now, and despite the attempts of Cad Bane to ditch Obi-Wan, he keeps coming back, like turning up like an old bad penny here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, what were y'all's initial thoughts on this episode?
So, well, first of all, there's so many great little Easter eggs in this episode that, you know, from the Rhodian named Pablo in the shop, you know, and we were talking earlier about how there were so many different things in the Clone Wars that we don't see in Rebels. The attention to detail is so insane. And there's some things like the Sebulba poster in the cantina or the saloon that they go into that says he'll be there signing autographs on Saturday or whatever. And, you know, just that little attention to detail. But, you know, this one's got a lot lot of intrigue in terms of this is where Palpatine is pulling on those puppet strings again with Anakin and planting these seeds in his head. You need to take care of this on your own. And then
I don't trust you.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, we have Obi-Wan drinking again. Mm-hmm. He always seems to hit the bar somehow, some way.
I once heard Ewan McGregor say that Obi-Wan was a bit of a lad. So,
and I love that about him. I just think that's so cool. But we get to see Obi-Wan use the Force as Rako Hardeen, which was kind of cool. But yeah, there's so much in here, and even Ahsoka just throwing out who else wears a hat like that? When Anakin says, "Are you sure it's Cad Bane?" But yeah, there's a lot of fun things in here.
Well, it's funny you talk about his penchant to hit the bar, because one of the lessons Anakin told Ahsoka about is we want to look for what do you say, scumbag or low life?
Yeah, low life.
Where do you go? Go to the cantina, which, by the way, I take a little offense to. Just saying.
If you want to find a low life, you start at the saloon.
Yeah. Man, I have to re-examine my life. Okay. So, yeah, I love Nal Hutta. I think it was pretty cool to see not only the Hutts just kind of going around and everything like that, but so much Leku.
Of course.
So many Twi'leks.
And it was so seedy too, and that's what I meant earlier by
that's my
some
scene.
of the adult themes. You know what I mean? You see people that are just kind of letting it all hang out and flirting with each other. And isn't Sice Noodles like stumbles out of the bar at one point or whatever?
Yeah, with a couple of Twi'leks, she's drunk.
And then you've got this. Wasn't it a Trandoshan who's like laying out a biff when Anakin and Ahsoka walk in there? I mean, he's just like, punching him out kind of thing. But there's some violence in there, but it's kind of crazy. And before I forget, one thing that also sticks out to me in here is kind of jumping ahead at the end when Anakin was knocked out cold, and Ahsoka, that pose that she does over top of his prone body to protect him is just like a mama cat. You know what I mean? Just stay away from my young. I'm protecting him. That was vicious. I loved that. You go,
cool.
girl.
That was cool.
Yeah. My favorite Easter egg of this episode was Indiana Jones' fedora.
Good one. Yep.
When Cad Bane was looking for a new hat, and he picked up that one first, and then he holds it like right at the screen, and then he puts it down and he takes another hat, which was not his favorite, but he gets another one later. We'll get into that.
Yes, he does.
And if the ship that they've got in this episode is based off of the Lady Luck, which was Lando's ship in Legends.
So cool.
Yeah, I first remember seeing this ship in the old Star Wars Galaxy Online role-playing game. It was something when they released their space expansion, you could get it if you pre-ordered. It was a freebie that they threw in there, and that's when I first encountered that, and I looked it up, and it showed up in various other Legend sources. And so, there's that. Of course, Lando, much like he did in the Solo movie, had tricked it out for luxury, a little bit different than what the bounty hunters were using it for here. But this episode is a good episode. I think the high points are really the environment, as you both have pointed out, and then of course it's Anakin getting angry and the Chancellor stoking that jealousy, that frustration, that distrust that will we eventually see come to a head in Revenge of the Sith. But this is just another one of those seeds that's being planted in this episode. And then I don't know, it's you get to the end and Anakin is trying to bring down the bounty hunter's ship by crashing the shuttle, hitting it at the top and trying to make it crash, and it's not working. So he jumps out and he has this lightsaber duel with Cad Bane on that ship while they're in pursuit, and then eventually Obi-Wan gets out there and he chokes out Anakin, and as right as Anakin's passing out, he's like, hey, don't follow me, Anakin. So he kind of reveals
sleeper
what's
hold.
going.
Sleeper hold.
Well, yeah. Shh. And then, as you pointed out, Jay, Ahsoka jumps in there and says, like, that's kind of what I was referring to earlier with these. There's these other opportunities that came up in these episodes for where Obi-Wan kind of maybe has to do the wrong thing, but then circumstances intervene and prevent him from having to do that. So he kind of gets lucky a number of times. And not that I begrudge that, but again, I don't know. It still just harkens back to that part of that first episode when he, after he had made sure his weapon was set on stun, he let Cad Bane shoot the one clone. So there's that. Considering what we've got to get through in the next 2 episodes, why don't we move on unless you guys have a final point or two you want to raise about this one?
Well, the only other thing I was going to say was the fact that we're seeing Anakin's rage amped up with every scene in this whole arc. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
And it's you can see it in his eyes, you can feel it in his demeanor, you can see it in the way that he's even talking to Ahsoka at certain points. So yeah, it's almost creepy in a way to watch and know, you can just tell that he's just boiling inside.
Yeah, there wasn't as much in this that I noticed, but in the first episode that we were talking about previously, they kind of liberally sprinkled the use of the Vader's theme, to try to, I guess, accentuate Anakin's emotions, The thing about this one, though, that it was when I saw it, I was kind of like, maybe it was could have been a little better, but I mean, you're in spaceships flying really fast, and you got Cad Bane and Anakin fighting outside, which is really cool. Don't get me wrong, but you crash, and you're gonna have a tough time coming back from that. You know?
Star Wars physics at play again.
Yeah. I want to say low gravity planet maybe or something, and even the way the ships crash, I just thought, it didn't quite look as
the ships took a lot worse than they did.
Yeah.
Because you'll see in the beginning of the next episode, which we'll get here though, when the not the Lady Luck, but their ship, which is modeled off the Lady Luck, lands on Sereno, it is all beaten up.
Yeah.
But there's nary a scruff or a scrape on Anakin or Cad Bane after flying off that ship at that speed. But anyway, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next episode, which is episode 17, and it's called The Box. Obi-Wan, still disguised, Moralo, Aval, and Cad Bane arrive on Sereno. Cad Bane and Obi-Wan are invited to participate in a competition inside the box, along with, it's actually about 10 other bounty hunters. If they survive, they will be invited to take part in Count Dooku's mission to kidnap the Chancellor. Obi-Wan and the others navigate through 4 challenges, and some of the bounty hunters perish in the process. In the end, Dooku appoints Cad Bane in charge of the mission to kidnap Palpatine from Naboo. So that's a very straightforward description of this episode, but it really is, I don't know, this is kind of like in some ways the key episode of the whole thing. It's the if you a lot of what happens in Rebels and the comics and Clone Wars gets compared to things that happen in Indiana Jones, and I kind of felt that way about this one. But the box is this, I don't know, this testing facility that was designed by Moralo Aval. It kind of reminded me of the Danger Room from the X-Men comics, where they would go to train and they would be like, they'd manipulate the environment and have holograms and stuff like that, test them. It also reminded me of the training facility the clones used on Camino, where they would, they'd have that facility that came up, and then and it also kind of looked like the Allspark from Transformers. But anyways, that's inside.
There you go.
But what did you think about these challenges? Moralo Aval says that you're going to have to go in and face some challenges that should replicate some of the danger that you're going to encounter on this mission. Well, there was maybe one thing I could think of that really was replicated from the mission that kind of showed up in this box, but I don't know. To me, it just kind of seemed like he was delighting in torturing these bounty hunters.
Yeah. Well, which one was it for you that you were thinking?
Well, at one point, his name was Darawan, the Parawan. He had to inject himself with that thing and reach through the force field to get to turn off the ray shields. And in the following episode, he reaches through a ray shield to manipulate the generator, which knocks out the Chancellor.
Okay. Well, I was thinking the lightsaber. Those things that were jutting out. They kind of reminded me of lightsabers. So
yeah, I put that in my notes as well too, Jay. And I grant you that, but you coupled them with all these platforms that they had to navigate to get out of the room, and And I wasn't sure what that had to do anything.
Yeah, and that's a lot of yellow kyber crystals. I mean, so, I mean, I think that they were actually they were supposed to simulate lightsabers, especially the way they were moving. And, but you saw
a lot of surprises there.
You saw the electricity kind of around them. So I feel like they're more like something like an electrified prod or something,
Which one of the bounty hunters backs up against the wall, away from one of the those things, only to have another one come right out of the wall and get him in the back?
It was the wasn't it the Ithorian, the one whose brother was killed?
Oh yes, I believe you're correct.
Yeah,
the one with the hat.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, that was a fun scene.
Where he just takes out the dude with the hat.
Yeah.
It's a nice hat.
Yeah, I put the quote from that when Cad Bane says, "What are you looking at? It's a nice hat." After he shoots the Ithorian just for the hat.
Yeah.
So. Well, you're making me think too about how it's simulated. What you're going to have to go through is more, maybe not literal in the sense that it is just the whole problem solving thing, that you're going to come up against obstacles that, whatever kind of job you're doing, you might have to think on your feet, you might have to problem solve, you might have to work together. So maybe it was more interpretive that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's just the way Moralo Val said, this will replicate some of the challenges you're going to find in the mission ahead, which I think he was just something I don't know. To me, it just seemed like kind of something he was saying. I mean, at first I took him seriously, and I was like, wait a minute, the gas that they had to get through, the platform falling apart as they're trying to shoot targets and stuff like that. I mean, sure, it's a test of skill. I get that, and it's a high pressure situation, but not much of it actually had to do anything with their mission.
Yeah. I mean, because there's no such thing as the fire pits of Naboo.
Yeah,
right. I mean, come on, he's full of crap. You're right.
So before we move on to the next episode, which one of the challenges was your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. I kind of liked the whole lightsaber thing where he had to time all of the jumps just perfectly. I call them lightsabers, but that's not what they were, obviously.
That's what I've been calling them too, Jay. So.
But I think that's probably my favorite one.
How about you, Taxus?
I'm just gonna have to go with the gas.
Okay. I like the one with the lightsabers as well. It just reminded me of levels I've played in video games. It was just called some nostalgia, having to, because Obi-Wan says, "I see the pattern," and is like, "Yep, that's exactly it." Because you get those video games where you have to jump from one platform to another before the platform you're on disappears, and sometimes before the next platform even shows up. You just have to trust that you're going to time it correctly. So there was that. But
one of the things I liked about this episode, real quick, was that we start to see the transition between Bane and Kenobi, from rivals to partners. Especially when they finally get to Sereno, and Dooku's like, "I have another challenge for you," and they're like, Kenobi's like, "Well, if he's in, I'm doing it." And Bane's like, "All right, whatever,"
Well, and they just brush ahead there at the end.
Yeah, but they brush past Moralo, right? Like, whatever, dude. Like, he's just nothing. Right. And so, you see, though, of course, Kenobi's helping Bane, escape. And I think later that comes into the decision-making process for Bane to help save Kenobi, when basically Moralo's stacked the cards against him,
I think it's a respect thing too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a partnership thing, but just like he said, if you're going to kill him, do it like a man. He didn't like the way that the game was being played, so he was going to side with Obi-Wan to kind of even the playing field.
Yep.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because if you think back to even when he shot the Ithorian at the beginning, just to take his hat, he at least did it face to face.
Right.
The Ithorian at least got to pull his blaster out, whereas Moralo Val was just trying to use all these tricks. And the other thing was, out of this test that was going on, it quit being about finding the competent bounty hunters to carry out this mission, and then it became all about Moralo Val's jealousy because Dooku was becoming enamored with Reiko Hardeen and how well he was getting through this course, and he wanted to eliminate that rival because Dooku kept saying things like, "Maybe I should put Reiko Hardeen in charge of this mission," and he wanted to be in charge. And in the end, neither one of them worked. Cad Bane was put in charge of the mission to kidnap the Chancellor, which brings us to the last episode of this arc. We have episode 18, Crisis on Naboo. And here's our summary. The half dozen bounty hunters remaining after the box head to Naboo to carry out Cad Bane's mission to abduct the Chancellor during the Festival of Light. Cad Bane equips the bounty hunters with holo disguises that make them appear to be Senate guards. When the Chancellor is knocked out by his platform's ray shield exploding, the disguised bounty hunters then disguise the Chancellor as a guard, and Cad Bane begins to remove him to the rendezvous point with Obi-Wan in pursuit. Once he catches up with them, he manages to subdue the bounty hunters and rescue Palpatine. After the Chancellor is secured, Anakin and Obi-Wan have a awkward and uncomfortable conversation about the Council withholding the truth from Anakin. Suspicious about how the mission was executed, Obi-Wan returns to his sniper's post and finds a listening device and arrives at the palace just in time to assist Anakin in rescuing the Chancellor from Count Dooku. So that's our conclusion to this series. So what did you think of this, Jay?
Okay, well, first of all, to go back just really quickly, as far as Obi-Wan being able to disguise himself, obviously he has the physical disguise of Rako Hardeen, but at the end of Friends and Enemies, when he tells Anakin, "Don't follow me," Anakin says, "I sensed something." Mm-hmm. And then when Obi-Wan shows up on Sereno, he wasn't able to, or I should say, Count Dooku wasn't able to sense his Force presence necessarily. So is there a power of Force cloakingness? Like, can you cloak yourself from others that are Force sensitive to sense your Forceness? Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Huh.
I mean, not to get off like on a tangent, but that was something that I've been wanting to ask.
I took it to be that Anakin and Obi-Wan were so close that Anakin kind of was able to sense Obi-Wan like a father or something like that. That was is a different relationship type of a thing where Dooku may not have been able to figure that out with such specificity. But by the end of this episode, he clearly anticipated the Jedi or someone infiltrating this mission, because he put the listening device in the case that contained the sniper rifle that Rako Hardeen / Obi-Wan was using. And so he heard everything that Obi-Wan was saying to the other Jedi. Right. In fact, when I went back to StarWars.com to look at the notes in the episode gallery that they had there was a comment from Dave Filoni about how Dooku knew that the Jedi would catch wind of this and infiltrate the mission. So he set up the whole box and all this mission as a diversion so that he could come in and get Palpatine.
So that's interesting, because the lesson that Moralo was trying to teach about how things can change at the drop of a hat. See what I did there? Basically, Dooku was exhibiting that lesson, right?
Well, yes, but I'm not sure he actually wanted them to learn it, did he? I think he wanted them to go execute their own plan, and then he was the twist on that. He didn't want anyone else to find out. I mean,
because nobody really reacted to the changes in the plan, right? I mean, they basically were going in there and things were failing left and right, and they didn't really exhibit a whole lot of, I guess you would say, ingenuity in figuring out how to complete the mission. I mean, heck, that one, who's the acrobat? What's her, Twavia or something? Twazia?
Yeah.
Twizzle. Yeah, Twazi. Twizzle stick. So all she just basically resorts to is trying to punch Anakin, but it ended up sounding more like, oh, that's kind of what it came to me, because it's like, are you serious? What are you doing? You're not even hurting him. You know what I mean? And he ends up cutting her arm off.
Yes, he does.
I mean, just I told you not to hit me. I mean, so I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, you're right, Dennis. Dooku probably had it planned from the start that they were going to fail. And that's why, it's kind of interesting. It harkens back to the last episode, about the reasons why they were putting through the box to try to train him to expect the unexpected.
Well, and he obviously sees them as being disposable. So, whatever happens to them, he doesn't really care. But those holo disguises were really cool. And they had talked about one of the bounty hunters in the previous episode that ended up perishing in the box as being someone who had developed some sort of holo technology. Was this his technology that they were using?
I think so.
It may have been. I'm not sure that they explicitly said one way or the other during the course of the episode.
It was the holo disguise. Yeah, I think it was. I think that was the intent, right? Which, was that a little too convenient?
Okay, thanks, Texas. I was just about to ask the same question because, in the first episode of this story arc, Obi-Wan gets an injection that makes him look exactly like a bounty hunter. And now he's got, at least for a moment, he didn't end up wearing the disguise, but he had a disguise on top of his disguise. He had a holo disguise on top of his injection disguise. And
it's a mystery wrapped in a riddle of an enigma, right?
But then we never see these things again in Star Wars.
Right.
Anytime in Rebels that they wanted to do something, they were always infiltrating things with the Empire, whether it was a Star Destroyer or a facility or whatever. They went out and got Stormtrooper armor as opposed to getting some sort of a holo projector. And, they never use some sort. Now, I get it. The Rebellion has got limited resources compared to the Republic, what the Republic had and the Empire had. But I know it was something that was needed by the plot. And while it was cool, it was just one of those things there that you throw in as like, well, this would have been useful in so many other situations.
Yeah.
And it was never used.
But
it was obviously flawed tech because it kept glitching.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, did it, or was that more of a story element?
No, it glitched because a couple times that's how Obi-Wan identified which one of the guards was getting away with the Chancellor. I know it glitched once that they used it to identify somebody over the course of the episode.
I mean, it's extreme science.
Yes, science!
So, I don't know, because the thing to my mind, when I was first thinking about this and that came up, I was thinking, okay, so usually when we see a hologram, it's all like weird and sickly blue, Now, the armor was naturally blue, okay, that's fine. But when the hologram starts projecting the armor and basically they're told to step into the armor, right? It's almost like the light somewhat solidified around the body.
Anyone can even know that.
Yeah, I don't quite get how the whole thing worked.
Yeah, because when Embo stepped into it, like his whole... I don't even know if that's a hat that you'd call it on his head, but his shield, Captain America shield that he wears on his head, just kind of molded right into the hologram too.
Which I think, if I remember my quantum physics correctly, that's possible. But not in this realm.
Well, we're beginning to run out of time on this segment, so let's finish up with one final bit of this episode, and we could spend another 45 minutes talking about these four stories, but they're that good. But when Anakin and Obi-Wan have saved the Chancellor, and maybe it was Mace Windu who showed up, the Chancellor says, once again, the Jedi have kept us safe, and Anakin vows that he will keep the Chancellor safe as long as he lives. And Palpatine responds, well, may you live a long life. And he shudders to think what the galaxy would be like without the Jedi.
Right?
I was like, oh, you are so evil. Because that's exactly what your plan is.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Nice bit of foreshadowing there. Of course, we know what's coming, but which makes it all the better. But that was just such a incredible way to end this whole thing.
So,
well, go ahead, Taxus.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So, why did they feel it necessary to try to abduct the Chancellor and not assassinate him?
Well, keep in mind who was doing it. It was Dooku. And the idea is to, he knows who Palpatine is. So, I suspect maybe it was an early attempt at getting to where we were at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Do we, normally when we review Rebels as a group, we grade them, but do we want to do that, or we just want to go on with a concluding thought?
Well, one thing I do want to say really quick while we're deciding that is when you said, oh, yeah, of course, we know what's going to happen. That's one thing that I got a sense of when I was rewatching these, is that even though we know that Obi-Wan survives, and even though we know what's going to happen later on, it still catches you in the moment in that feeling of, are they going to get out of this? Are they going to get out of this? And I just think, once again, that's such a great tribute to the storytelling and the way that this, this whole series has made us feel as fans. And for people who maybe aren't familiar with a whole lot of it, watching it for the first time, it really does give you that sense of anticipation and almost worry for the characters, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. Well, while you were saying that, I think I made a decision.
Good.
I think we should give this a letter grade. Yeah, let's keep on with it.
Okay. Well, then, Taxus, since you decided we're going to do it, you get the honors. Go first.
Oh, I didn't expect that. Actually, I did. I'm going to give it a flat B. So I'm going to do.
Okay.
And
a B flat?
Well, no. I mean, that music. And so, yeah, that's it. So the reason I did that is because, or I chose that is there were great elements to it, fun elements to it, but I mean, I don't know. Some of the Star Wars science was just seemed a little out of reach to me. I mean, the holograms, the giant throat thing that you had to choke down. I don't know. I guess that's what kind of ruined it, or not ruined it, but took me out of the moment. You know what I mean?
Sure. Jay, how about you?
Well, that's all fair enough, Taxus, and I totally get that. And I guess if I was being really, really nitpicky, I would definitely agree. But I'm going to give these an A. And as I said before, there's so much to this that are things like we get to see those seeds being planted and watered in Anakin in terms of this mistrust of the Jedi. And we get to see what lengths the Jedi will go through to get things done. And like you said, Dennis, they are starting to lose their way a little bit and second guess themselves, in terms of even Yoda admits, maybe we shouldn't have done this. And there's just so much to the layering of the storylines going on with this that is so much deeper than just the stories themselves. And yet the stories themselves were a heck of a lot of fun. It was just a thrill ride from start to finish. So, and of course, getting to see Obi-Wan enjoy a cocktail once again. So I'm going to give it an A.
All right. I'm in teetering back and forth between an A- and a B+, and I'm going to be generous and go ahead and give it an A-. I love the environments. It was great seeing the Gamorreans in the second episode here on Nal Hutta. I forgot to mention that earlier, but having them around, they weren't there very long, but they were there. And a Nick too. That was cool. I liked the box. I liked the plan to abduct the Chancellor. The physics didn't bother me so much just because, well, we're so used to seeing crazy science in Star Wars to begin with, but just some of the convenient plot points, like the injection disguise followed up by the holo disguise. Again, great. They got something that worked for the plot, but just the geek in me just like, well, why didn't we ever see these things again?
Sure.
So there's that. But no, I love the way it ended. That whole bit with the Chancellor saying, I shudder to think with a galaxy without the Jedi, when that very thought sends a little tingle of glee up his spine. That was just such a great ending. Yeah. But
and I like to think that Obi-Wan contacted Satine and said, "Hey, honey, I'm alive. Don't worry."
Whoa. So, you might say those whole projectors, even though I've been kind of hard on them, they literally did blind everybody else with science.
Very good. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our discussion of these 4 Clone Wars episodes. I'm not even sure that they have a collective name, but Scoundrels, we'd love to hear what you think. So join us over on the RetroSap Discord server and let's talk about it.
According to legend, General Grievous was known to boast of the number of lightsabers he had acquired from the bodies of his slain Jedi enemies. Grievous was the first in a long tradition of collectors of rare items. A tradition that continues to this day on the Retro Zap podcast known as the Dork Lair.
It's time for...
Silence, fools!
Okay, well, we've got feedback from a variety of different places, and I want to start with Discord, where Aaron Harris, the host of Rebels Reactions, wanted to let us know. He drops a little note that said, "I just have to say that I'm loving listening to the show. Discussions are engaging and positive. I love the skits and poll questions asked at the end of each episode." So thank you very much, Aaron. We're glad you're listening and participating on our Discord server. Yeah. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A special thanks goes to Middle Mando on Twitter, who's been including us in a list of must-listen-to pods.
Awesome.
So that is very much appreciated, and thank you. And with that out of the way, let's go to our Twitter polls. So because of upcoming vacations and trips and things like that, we're recording this before we actually have the results of our last Twitter poll. So we'll get to that on our next episode. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and get to the current poll, which is, if you had to go undercover as a bounty hunter for the Jedi, which bounty hunter would you choose to pose as?
I'm going to pre-protest the last Twitter poll that we didn't get to, because I'm sure whatever the results are, I should have won. And if I did win, then I'm fine, and I remove my pre-protest.
Well, you're presupposing you lost, so we'll presuppose that you did, and you can go first.
Well, there you go. Strategy and tactics, kids.
Yes, science!
Uh-huh. Okay, so I would go with Boba Fett. You know why? He's got a mask, and I don't have to do that weird face-off thing. Because that looked like it sucked.
Yeah, but if the helmet comes off, you're exposed.
Well, just put the chin strap on or something. I mean, I'm used to being exposed before, but
No, seriously?
Just sure. Okay. Jay, how about you?
I'm gonna go with Sugi.
I like it. That's a good choice.
Oh, honey.
And yes, I will take the horns.
Whoa. Take the horns. Okay.
Take the bounty hunter by the horns.
I've been thinking about this one a lot. Taxus, after giving you some trouble, I was actually considering Boba Fett on that one. It's a Mandalorian. That gear's available. You could do it. There's that. I don't know. It's this. Even though I've thought of this question earlier and I've been pondering it, I am having a hard time coming up with a good choice. But bear with me here. I'm actually going to go with Dengar. Why?
Okay, I think I know why. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No. Actually, it's kind of the same reason you were saying, Taxus. One, it's a disguise where a lot of pieces of the armor are readily available.
Yes.
There's that. Two, you can wrap up your face and disguise yourself. And if you need to get rid of the disguise, you could probably do it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think the problem with going as someone like Boba Fett or Cad Bane, who is also considering, is people would expect an awful lot of you when you're posing as those bounty hunters. And as soon as you don't live up to that reputation, the ruthlessness of Cad Bane, or you miss a shot or something like that, your disguise is going to fall apart. Whereas I feel like if I'm Dengar, I don't have to be nearly as competent. So,
well, that, and I mean, in all seriousness, that was actually one of my first considerations when I was thinking about this earlier, and for those exact same reasons. But one reason you left off is that whatever weird, leprosy, unclean kind of stuff he's got, nobody's going to want to get near him.
There's that. There's that. All right. Well, we will have this Twitter poll up soon, and Scoundrels, we want to know. So please vote and make your choices.
Ooh, could you imagine if Dengar had to go get a mani-pedi?
Ugh, no. Well, we're getting close to the end of another episode. What do you two have coming up this week?
Well, like we said at the beginning there, I've got a lot of Core Worlds Couture reviews coming out, and really excited about possibly getting some new stuff here in the mail soon. So just be looking for that, and getting some things together for the next That's So Wizard. So head over to Coffee with Kenobi and check out some of those reviews.
Yeah, and you can find me over in the Assembly Geeks Network on the Geek Supreme with Scott Murray, Regina Davis, and Jeff McGee. And it's a fun little game show, NPR style thing where we kind of talk about the topics, and I award them points and give them challenges along the way. So, the Geek Supreme, it's fun. Trust me.
And as usual, I have some recent Star Wars comic reviews up on RetroZap. Some recent reviews include what's going on in the Poe Dameron series, Darth Vader, and Dr. Aphra. And finally, you can find my Star Wars blogs on Coffee with Kenobi. Okay, Scoundrels, thanks for your listening and for your support. If you've enjoyed the show, this has been Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and we would love a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, especially iTunes, which you all also know as Apple Podcasts. On the other hand, if you didn't like this, we ask that you not send an undercover squad of stormtroopers after us. Also, don't put us in the box. With that in mind, we do appreciate it anytime you share our show posts on Twitter and Facebook. Please let others know that you're listening by sharing the show with a tweet or a post. A special thanks to everyone that has taken the time to share our show with their social media friends.
And speaking of social media, Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels can be followed on Twitter and Instagram at SCubedPod and liked on Facebook, where we are facebook.com/SCubedPod. If you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he is at Darth Taxus, Dennis is at DJKVER2, and I am at Joyce Krebs. Don't forget about our page on the RetroZap Discord server. We'll be there talking about Star Wars, the Clone Wars, Solo, and more frequently everything else. You can find links to that in our show notes and on our social media. You can reach us by email at scubedpod@retrozap.com. We would love to hear your thoughts on Deception, Friends and Enemies, The Box, and Crisis on Naboo. But if you have anything else that's on your mind, Star Wars related or not, then let us know. Emails, really good tweets, and iTunes reviews end up in Silence Fools. Again, our email address is scubedpod@retrozap.com.
And we are honored to be part of RetroZap.com podcast network. Did you know that RetroZap is home to 20 podcasts? I did. Now you do too. Please check out RetroZap for other great shows, including the Superhero Suite featuring Jay and Josh, other Star Wars shows such as Skywalking Through Neverland, Beltway, Banthas, Kanata's Castle, and Brews and Blasters, collecting shows like The Dorkware, and other great, not specifically themed shows like the Animecast, wait a minute, that is specifically themed, the Argcast, Deucecast, and Techno Retro Dads. Those are all wonderful, and they're all in my rotation. I enjoy each and everything. Be sure also to check out our Scoundrels t-shirts on TeePublic. The link to our show is in the show notes, or just search for S Cubed on the site. Instead of a facelift, just wear one of these. They'll take years off your life. I mean age. Yeah. Years off your age.
All right, well, thanks to Aaron Lay for our show logos and to James Volpe, the Sky Geek, for our The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly show logo. And thanks to Mario and the Scoundrels players for lending us their voice talents.
And here's our disclaimer. Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and or Disney. This show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels unless otherwise indicated.
Okay, any final thoughts?
What's that noise? Is someone mowing the lawn?
No. It's my portable home liposuction machine.
Isn't that dangerous?
That's the price for beauty.
Maybe you should just use a coupon then.
Okay, that will do it for episode 60 of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. As always, thanks for listening and joining us this week. Until next time, may the Force be with you. Who are you talking to?
I'm Amanda.
Oh, okay.
Amanda Lorian.
Anyways, as I was saying, I wanted to give Aaron Harris. Are you okay?
Sorry about
Hello?
that. I just dropped my phone.
Marker.
I did. I put one there already. All right. Sorry, Dennis. Here we go.